This is TLC Elementary School, a place where teachers of kindergarten through 6th grade can find high-quality documentary programs chosen to inform and delight students. Use TLC Elementary School to complement your classroom lessons and to give students an up-close look at the world and the people around them. On this edition of TLC Elementary School, explore the body systems that make us gurgle, burp, gasp, and giggle. First, find out how the nervous system allows us to react to our environment. Then, follow the path our food takes as it travels through the digestive system. See how the respiratory system delivers oxygen to cells. And finally, learn how the skeleton and muscles shape our bodies. And watch for classroom activities right after each segment.
The following program is part of Cable in the Classroom, a free service of the cable communications industry and your local cable company.
Segment 1, Nervous System.
There is one system in our body that is in control of almost everything we do. Its 100 billion nerve cells connect a network of almost infinite complexity, so that from the moment we are born, we can learn, remember, reason, and interact with the world. It's called the nervous system, and it makes us conscious of who we are. The nervous system has always been one of the most mysterious systems of the body. More than 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, doctors believed that the brain, not the heart, had the power of thought and understanding. Today, we know most of the functions of the brain and nervous system, but we are still trying to understand exactly how it works. In some ways, it's similar to a computer, like the one Brian is working on, but millions of times more complex. The brain is one part of the nervous system. Attached to it is the spinal cord through which information travels. Together, the brain and spinal cord are called the central nervous system. Millions of pathways lead from the central nervous system to every part of the body. These pathways are called the peripheral nervous system. It allows information to travel around the body. From the senses of sight, sound, smell, and touch, to the brain, and from the brain to all our muscles. So how does the body's nervous system work? Both the peripheral nervous system and central nervous system are made up of billions of nerve cells, or neurons, and trillions of synapses, or connections between the nerve cells. Nerve cells allow electric signals to move along certain paths. When we think, tiny electrical signals flash between these nerves. The body makes electrical signals from a constant supply of blood, carrying oxygen and a sugar called glucose. This is the fuel for our nerves. The cells we use to think with lie on the surface of the brain, in the cortex, a layer that's 1/8 of an inch thick. To have an oversized skull would have been impractical, so the brain needed to fit into a compact space. A large surface can be stuffed into a small space by crumpling it up, like a sheet of paper. The cortex is crumbled into fissures and grooves. If we smooth out the crinkles, the cortex would be about the size of a pillowcase. The nerve cells in the cortex make it possible for us to do everything that's unique to humans, making decisions, voicing opinions, and interpreting and understanding what we see and hear. The crumpled cortex forms two hemispheres filled with bundles of nerves. When it comes to controlling the muscles, each hemisphere is responsible for one side of the body, all the way from the eyes and hands to the feet. Unlike the wires in a computer, living nerve cells are constantly creating new pathways. Experience shapes these pathways. By repeating successes, a child learns hand-eye coordination, the skill of balancing on two legs, and how to communicate with language. Unlike other cells in our bodies, nerve cells can't be replaced once they die. Throughout our lives, we have the same nerve cells we had when we were born.
Yes? It takes a long time before you find
Memory is an important part of the brain's function. It uses both long-term and short-term memory. Hear a new word, and you can recall it for a few seconds. This is because it is stored in your short-term memory. But your short-term memory will quickly fade unless it's filed in your long-term memory. To retain what you've learned, the brain changes slightly each time we commit a new fact to our long-term memory. With constant repetition, memories become deeply ingrained. Most things we do involve almost every part of the brain, even something as simple as answering a question. We must hear the words, understand them, draw on our memory, then voice the answer. It's a complex process that happens almost instantly. Intelligent computers that can think for themselves and learn from experience exist in the realms of science fiction. But each one of us contains a far more powerful computer inside us, our nervous system. It may be made up of nerve cells, but it allows each of us to dream and to accomplish our dreams.
Try this activity to complement nervous system. How good is your memory? Choose a partner and study his or her appearance for 10 seconds. Then quickly turn away and describe what your partner is wearing. How many details can you remember? Segment 2, Digestive System.
Although Gary is sleeping, his body is still hard at work, digesting the meal he ate last night. Inside every one of us is a complex machine, a power station, a chemical factory, and a waste disposal unit all in one. To operate it, all you need to do is eat and drink. Over a lifetime, each of us will eat almost 30 tons of food. It goes in and out of our digestive system and provides the fuel to keep the trillions of cells in our body alive. All living things require energy to survive, and food is the starting point for acquiring energy. Gary is ready for breakfast, the meal that breaks the overnight fast. This food will make a 24-hour journey through his body. The nutrients in the food will be absorbed, and the rest will be excreted. Chewing starts the digestive process. The mouth is loaded with up to 32 teeth, designed to grind, cut, and tear food. The white surface of the teeth, called enamel, is the hardest substance in the body. Just the thought of food is enough to make your mouth water. 3 pairs of salivary glands produce saliva from under the tongue. As the teeth destroy the structure of the food, saliva goes to work. It begins to break down certain food molecules into sugar and softens the food for its journey to the stomach. As we swallow, a reflex action stops us from breathing, so the food or drink doesn't go into our lungs. Instead, it is squeezed down the esophagus into the stomach. The journey takes less than 10 seconds. The stomach is about the size of a boxing glove. It is a food processor, pulverizing what we eat, diluting or concentrating it, and preparing it for the next stage of digestion. It is also a reservoir for holding food between meals. Most food stays here for 2 to 6 hours. Waves of muscular contractions in the stomach churn, squeeze, and blend the food into a thick paste called chyme. It's been almost 3 hours since Gary had breakfast. Most of it has now left his stomach and is traveling through the small intestine, an average journey of 20 feet. This is where most of the nutrients from the food are absorbed into the body. If our entire digestive tract were a straight tube, like a worm's, we would have to be at least 30 feet tall. Instead, our intestines are neatly looped to fit inside our bodies. Our intestines need to be long, so as the chyme travels through them, more nutrients can be absorbed. These tiny finger-like projections called villi cover the surface of the small intestines. They give the lining of the small intestine a surface area 10 times greater than the surface of your skin. The greater the surface area, the more space there is for nutrients to be absorbed. Each of the tiny villi contains a network of blood vessels, which absorb the nutrients from the chyme into the bloodstream. 6 hours after breakfast, the food stripped of its nutrients starts the final stage of its journey, a slow trek of about 5 feet through the large intestine. This is the setting for the third stage of digestion. Huge numbers of bacteria reside in the large intestine, living on the remains of our digested food. These bacteria are quite harmless in the digestive tract. In fact, they help us out by making small amounts of some vitamins. The last component is water, a substance so important that the body is constantly reclaiming it from our waste products. The muscular walls of the large intestine force its contents onward to the rectum, the end of the journey through the digestive tract. The digestive system runs mainly on automatic, but the final stage, excretion, is under our conscious control. Eating, digesting, and excreting is a predictable cycle. Eating 3 meals a day in a regular manner helps to keep this process running smoothly. Even the most exotic foods have but one purpose: to provide the energy that keeps us alive and healthy.
Try this activity to complement digestive system. What you eat and how much you eat are important for maintaining good health. Use the food pyramid to design a menu for one day. Make sure you follow the serving guide and include a variety of foods. Segment 3, Respiratory System.
John Fitzgerald is a world-class swimmer. He spends a lot of time in the water, training to be the fastest. But whether he is underwater or out of the water, there's one thing his body needs to survive: oxygen. Over 12 times a minute, 24 hours a day, oxygen from the air enters the lungs, where it is absorbed into the bloodstream and transported to each of the trillions of cells in the human body. To make this amazing feat possible, the respiratory system is the oxygen delivery system. At the center of the respiratory system are the lungs, 2 of them. They fill 90% of our chest and are made of millions of tiny branching air passages. Whether you're a champion athlete or not, the lungs work the same way, like a sponge soaking up air. When we breathe in, muscles between the ribs pull the rib cage up. When we breathe out, we simply let the muscles relax and air is automatically pushed out from the lungs. The air we breathe enters the body through the mouth and nose. The narrow passage of the nose slows down the rate at which we take air into our lungs, and also filters pollen and large pieces of dirt. The inside of the nose is coated with a moist membrane that also traps unwanted particles in the air. While training, John's lungs must take in oxygen very quickly because his muscle cells will need extra oxygen. To speed the flow of air, John breathes through his mouth. Most people pump about a pint of air in and out of their lungs with each breath. But athletes like John have exercised their lungs so much that they can fill their lungs with quite a bit more air. Whether it comes into the lungs through the mouth or the nose, the air is forced into tubes inside the lungs. These are bronchial tubes, and they branch over and over again into even smaller tubes. This branching maze of air passages ends in very tiny tubes, each covered with alveoli, or miniature airbags. We have about 300 million alveoli in our lungs. This is the inside view of one of them. It is only 1/100th of an inch across, and its walls are only a few millimeters thick. These tiny sacs in the lungs are so thin that the oxygen in the air crosses into the capillaries, or small blood vessels that surround them. This happens because gases like oxygen naturally move from an area where they are concentrated to an area where they are not. It is the blood that transports the oxygen around the body. The blood also picks up carbon dioxide, a waste product of the cells. This gas is brought back to the lungs, where it passes into the small sacs and is exhaled as we breathe out. To bring John's performance to its maximum potential, his training is monitored in a laboratory for Olympic athletes. A computer analyzes the data from his body, his heartbeat, his power output, and most importantly, his oxygen consumption. The brain senses the amount of carbon dioxide in the blood and decides when we need to breathe more heavily. In this test, John is inhaling and exhaling as fast as he can to meet the needs of his fast-working muscle cells. His heart is also beating faster, pumping more blood with oxygen through his body. Based on the test in the lab, John knows what his body's limits are. As he powers his way to the finish, John takes a final few breaths of precious air. He has swum almost a mile at full speed, and he's just about to hit his limit. He's an extraordinary athlete, performing the most ordinary of tasks, breathing. His respiratory system has achieved a remarkable feat, filling his body with oxygen from the air that surrounds us all.
Try this activity to complement respiratory system. Measure your lung capacity. First, inhale deeply and exhale into a balloon. Then tie the balloon and submerge it completely in water. The amount of water displaced by the balloon represents your lung capacity. Segment 4, Musculoskeletal System.
The human body is a finely tuned machine. We are all built with the same blueprint of muscle and bone, but we can use them to perform amazingly different tasks. Even if you're not an athlete in training, it's your musculoskeletal system that gives you strength, agility, and a shape that is distinctly human. Bobby Thatcher is training for the Olympics. He competes in the sport of rowing. To win, Bobby will need to use all his muscles, coordinated in harmony as he pulls the boat through the water. A heat-sensitive camera reveals the parts of his body giving off the most heat. It's a complex system of muscles that show up on the camera. As Bobby pulls on the oar, his motion is transferred to a paddle in the water that moves the boat forward. Without a solid oar, Bobby's efforts would be useless. It's the same in our bodies. Without a solid framework of bones, our muscles would be of little use to us. We are born with about 350 bones in our body, but as we grow, many of them fuse together. Adults have about 206 separate bones, and these bones come in all shapes and sizes, like the bones in our feet that are only a fraction of an inch, or the bones in our legs that can be up to 2 feet long. Each bone in the skeleton is shaped to perform a particular function and support different weights and movements. Bones are made of living tissue, linked by a microscopic network of blood vessels and nerves. The minerals that make up the hard part of bone gradually dissolve and are carried away in the bloodstream. At the same time, new minerals build up bones. Most of our bones are replaced every 2 to 5 years. The bones in our body are connected together through joints. Like the pivot where Bobby's oar meets the boat, joints allow bones to move. Of all the joints in the human body, the knee is the most complex. It must bend while it carries the whole weight of the body. The kneecap allows muscles to pull strongly around the bent joint. The human hand has a special joint that sets us apart from all other animals. It's the thumb. Facing the fingertips, it provides a strong yet sensitive grip. In contrast, the massive backbone supports the weight of the upper body. The skeleton also provides protection for the heart, lungs, and other organs inside the body. The ribs help to spread the load. Like a helmet, the skull protects the brain. While other kinds of machines gradually wear out, the human machine can improve with use. Bobby's exercise and training increases his stamina so he can row faster and farther. Ramsford has worked as hard as Bobby to develop his body, but for a different purpose, muscle strength. He can lift an object twice his own weight. In a person of average size, muscles make up almost half the body's weight. Muscles define the outer shape of the body, hold the bones in place, and move them. The human body contains about 650 different muscles, on average 3 muscles for every bone. Muscles end in tendons, which are fixed firmly to bones. Under the skin, raw muscle is made of thousands or even millions of tiny muscle cells. Each cell is as thin as a hair and up to 2 inches in length. Nerves send an electric shock to the cell's surface. This electrical impulse makes tiny fibers inside the muscle cells contract rhythmically. As they contract, the muscle shortens to about 75% of its original length. For light work, the nervous system stimulates only a small amount of the cells in each muscle to pull. To increase the strength of the pull, it recruits more cells and fires them more frequently. By working his muscles with heavier and heavier weights, Ramsford has increased their size and their ability to contract. Most of us don't choose to train our bodies for amazing physical feats. But whether we do or not, our muscles and bones work together to make it possible.
Try this activity to complement Musculoskeletal System. Design a series of exercises that work at least 3 muscle groups, for example, your arms, legs, and abdomen. Draw a diagram of the exercises and include detailed step-by-step instructions on how to complete them. For a free educator's guide, call 1-888-892-3484 or find us on Discovery School Online.
The preceding program is part of Cable in the Classroom, a free service of the cable communications industry and your local cable company.
Imagine a world of free teaching resources, just a click away at discoveryschool.com. Students, teachers, and parents can connect to hundreds of lesson plans and video clips. Puzzle Maker,